The chair would welcome a motion.
A motion?
A motion.
You want to discuss first and make a motion?
Oh, well, I've been asking for discussion.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm sorry, I thought we had been. Please discuss, Mr. Moore.
Well, I think first of all it's important to acknowledge that the facts in this case really are not in dispute. And really the legal issue is not in dispute as well, because the legal issue is set forth very clearly by Mr. Slaughter in his zoning determination, that whether or not resort dwellings are allowed in the single-family zoning districts. And I just wanted to comment on a couple of things that Mr. Rumrell said in his presentation and his argument. He said that property rights are important rights, and I certainly agree with that, and that zoning codes limit the rights to use your property. And I think all of us would agree with that. I think everybody would accept the fact that we all hold our property subject to the right of the community to reasonably regulate it for the public welfare. That's what zoning codes are all about. So really the issue is what does our zoning code say? The other thing that Mr. Rumrell pointed out was that, and this kind of concerned me, was that we were targeting his client. And that upset me in a way because I don't feel that there is any targeting of anybody here. My recollection is that his client is the only person in the city that is actually registered, whether it's 12 or 14 or 17 dwellings, I don't know how many exactly, as resort dwellings. And according to the research that was done, his client was the only one that had done that. So we know that his client is operating that many resort dwellings within the single-family zoning districts in the city of Venice. Mr. Rumrell also mentioned several things about the discussions and the comments and the opinions that were rendered by Mr. Black and Mr. Slaughter and others in the course of this evolving issue as we began to hear complaints from members of the community about what was happening in Golden Beach or up off of Bayshore or other areas. And my opinion is that while those were discussions and they were opinions, that they're really irrelevant to this proceeding today. We are not bound by those. What we're bound by is what the zoning administrator said in his zoning determination letter. So I would ask that we simply discount those completely. He also indicated that the length of time, he also indicated that there is no definition of resort dwelling in the Venice Land Development Code. And he's absolutely correct. There is no definition of resort dwelling. That's contained in Section 509 of the Florida statutes, in which resort dwelling is specifically defined as a dwelling which is rented more than 3 times a year for periods of less than 30 days or 1 month, whichever is less. So that's what a resort dwelling is. When his client went out and registered all 17 or 14 of his dwellings as resort dwellings, he basically adopted that licensing requirement of the Florida statutes. And he basically held out his businesses in those residential zoning districts as resort dwellings. And that's exactly what they are. They're businesses. The requirement that they be licensed is in the portion of the Florida statutes which regulates trade and commerce. And the requirement that he obtain this license was defined by the letter of the gentleman from that bureau, which was read into the record, which indicated that this is a business license. So Mr. Milo has apparently licensed these homes as a business. He's operating them as a business. He's operating them as resort dwellings in single-family zoning districts. I think the critical thing is to look at the code itself. And you've already done that, and at the risk of being somewhat redundant, I just like to go through the zoning code. which is 86-81 of our Land Development Code, resort single-family residential districts. And I just want to emphasize, the general intent paragraph says the residential single-family districts are intended to be single-family residential areas of low density. We've already heard that under the comprehensive plan, while transient uses are allowed in moderate and medium density, they're not allowed in low density. In the section of the code, paragraph B, permitted principal uses, we've already heard that there is no use that comports with resort dwellings within that. It talks about one single-family dwelling per lot. And then in paragraph C, it says permitted accessory uses. And it says permitted accessory uses and structures in the RSF district are uses which, number one, are customarily and clearly incidental and subordinate to permitted or permissible uses, and number two, do not involve the conduct of business on the premises. Do not involve the conduct of business. I submit that under our code, what Mr. Milo is doing is conducting a business within a single-family residential unit by operating resort dwelling units that he has a business license for, and de facto, the way he operates it is a business. This isn't a question of letting people use your home or having guests come in or renting out your house for a year. And number four, again, under permitted uses, it says uses which are not of a nature likely to attract visitors in larger numbers than would normally be expected in a residential neighborhood. What we've heard from the facts in this case is that's exactly what this business has done. It's attracted large numbers of people and automobiles and impact on what is in residential neighborhoods. And number five, uses that do not involve operations or structures not in keeping with the character of single-family residential development. And then it talks about, we're in the same zoning ordinance, single-family resident, prohibited uses and structures. It specifically says any use or structure not specifically, provisionally, or by reasonable implication permitted in this section or permissible by special exception is prohibited. It's clear to me that resort dwellings operating as a business in which you can rent out your home every weekend, every day of the year if you want, under that license, it's clear to me that they are prohibited because they are not permitted. Now, you can obtain a special exception for certain uses, but again, resort dwellings are not one of those that you can obtain a special exception for. Now, that's just a brief summary of what the ordinance itself says on single-family residence. To me, that's exactly where the zoning administrator, Mr. Slaughter, came down in his finding that the operation of these dwelling units as resort dwellings within the single-family zoning district is prohibited by our code. Thank you.
Thank you.